In today's video, I'm going to talk about and break down the strategy of how the top 0.01% of e-commerce brands are scaling past 30 plus $1,000 days profitably. And just to show you that, I know I'm qualified to speak of these things, this is just one of our own clients that in just August 5th, just a random day in this month, generated over $30,000. Let me just refresh so you know this is real so that we can get back into the video, okay? Now that we got the proof out of the way, let's just jump right into the video. The one strategy, just to jump right in, without wasting any time, is building ads and sales processes that are optimized at targeting one specific market segment, one specific avatar type of persona that has one problem and one major desire, okay? If you're able to build ads, sales pages, offers, products that are specific to one problem, one solution, one desire, one person, then it's way more scalable, right? Why? Because the ads are more personalized. The landing page, the advertorial, whatever it is that you're doing, the strategy, the approach that you're utilizing is just 100 or at least 10 times more personalized, right? So this is the typical, and I've gone through a couple of these concepts already in previous videos, but let me just rephrase because this is really, really important. In many cases, before I move on into the strategy to show you some diagrams, in many cases, people don't understand that their avatar, their segment, their country, whatever it is going to reach a ceiling. And so the best way to really leverage scaling processes and strategies is to go after different market segments, not just focus on one. Right. So I'm going to talk about more about this as I move on into the video. But long story short, this is what most people do. They target the 40-year-old Sally, Bob, who has back pain. That is just a very broad avatar. Okay, very, very broad avatar. It's like so broad that you're this little minuscule dot in the middle of a red ocean. If you don't know what the red ocean means, it's basically a flooded red ocean market. It's a market that's so saturated that it's really, really hard to compete. Not saturated just in the product, right? You can sell saturated products and be smart with angles and personas, right, and make it work, right, and get a piece of the market. But if you just go after like super broad, without a specific personalized ad to a specific personal avatar, you're just competing against everybody else in the market, right? And so you don't want to do this. This is high CPMs. Not always going to be high CPMs. I mean, it depends on the vertical. It depends from vertical to vertical, right? But it's very hard to scale, and the cost per acquisitions are typically like maybe you can get a break even, but most likely unprofitable. Okay, now this is how A+ figure brands do it. The approach is that we go after segmented, super hyper specific, long tail, let's call them avatar personas, which is a market segment, right, that has a specific desire and pain point, right? Not a billion pain points, because then the ads and the landing pages don't really resonate, right? So we want to choose a specific persona. How do we get to this persona? We do a lot of research, okay? Like a lot of research. I'll just give you a quick example of a research that we do here. And I'm going to show you this in just a second. But one example is that if we're going after plantar fasciitis, we like to go on Reddit forums. We like to use, of course, ChatGPT. We use ChatGPT actually to give us all the resources, and then we click on all the links, and then we explore more. But we also go on like TikTok to understand what types of ads, angles, and personas, customers, what are they saying? What are they complaining about? This is just a perfect example. On a side note, before I end this video, I am just about to launch a SaaS. It's actually for my own company. And so the idea is to have basically an AI creative strategist for you. The actual website where you can sign up for the waiting list is paid ads, or is it called paid ads pilot.ai. You can go here. There's a link down below. It's basically your AI creative strategist. There's a quick demo of how it works. You can sign up for the waiting list. But the overall idea here is that there's a research agent, a scripting agent, an asset agent, and a performance agent that analyzes your creatives, your ad account, and gives you basically it's looping, and there's a learning process by itself, where the research, scripting, and asset and performance agent just keep on improving over and over again. So there's a research, scripting, launch, analyze, refine kind of process, and there's so many other things within the software. If you are interested, there's a waiting list that you can join over here. This is an example of a video that has 500 comments, but they have like 21,000 saves, 28,000 likes. Of course, it's a proven concept. One thing that we want to go after is like read all these comments. I already have heel spurs. Thank you. I'm sitting here with an extremely high pain tolerance, but in tears. Bro, I can't take steps because I have the fasciitis. Whatever. I'm not going to do this right now because it takes like hours to do this, right? But you go and read through all these comments to take inspiration for what people actually want. On top of that, we actually take inspiration on the videos that actually do well. So this is an example of a video that you could use in a hook.
with these 3 simple steps. The third one will make sure it never comes back. First thing is to rate your pain from a scale from 0 to 10, 10 being
So
bad.
this is like an educational hook. These are the three. This is a good hook. These are the. By the way, talking about inspirations and doing research on your customer. As you do research on your customer, you will find so many hook ideas and ad ideas at the same time, right? So what it's saying here, these are 3 things that you should do that can help you stop your plantar fasciitis pain. And the third one is the best one, which could be your product maybe, right? And so this is a perfect hook. It's very educational, it's very informational, it's not salesy, and it doesn't surprise. I'm not surprised that it's doing quite well. So going back to my framework over here, this is an example of a longer tail avatar that is still has a big majority of has an addressable market that is scalable, right? Because we never want to go after an avatar that is so specific that there's only like 500 people in the US, right? We want to go after people still in the millions that have big TAMs of like 800 million, 1 billion, but not go after, once again, this example over here on the top. So this is an example, 40-year-old Sally, whatever, who is a nurse and works 12-hour shifts and has chronic back pain. She needs a solution now to show up to work healthy and be there for her kids when she is back home. So the first thing that I would do is, I like the avatar. I maybe read about, going back over here, I read about people having pains with, whether it's back pain, plantar fasciitis, whatever. Maybe I started noticing that a nurse or several nurses or several people that suffered from standing, 12 plus hours a day at a work job, whatever, you get the point, is dealing with this problem. So I identified that problem and I created an avatar. So the next thing that we can do is maybe do a research like, how many nurses are there in the US in 2025 or 2024? I don't know. 5.2 million. Okay, so it's 5.2 million. So what is the TAM? What is the addressable market? Assuming there's 5.2 million, I also read on ChatGPT that it's closer to 10 and that it's growing. So let's just say that it's somewhere in the middle between men, women, and all like people that stand up in like hospitals or whatever. So let's just say it's 7. If we do 7 times an AOV of $100, right, or $150, let's just say, because maybe they come back and they buy more, right? We have a 1 billion, right? So it's like 7 million times $150, it's this is $1 billion market. So it's scalable. We have the green light. Once again, we never want to go too specific because then we're like creating a problem to ourselves in the first place before we even start scaling and making it work. So this approach is a blue ocean approach. So instead of going after a $50 billion market, we go after $1 billion market where competition is just, there's maybe like only 5 or 10 other competitors, or maybe even like 2 or 3 or 0. So you get the point. This is the environment that we want to create, and then we scale it horizontally by going after different personas in marketing. So one way that we actually scale avatars, okay, is that we test them to, in most cases, depending on how we want to go about it. In some cases, we don't do this. In most cases, we do. We test the avatar on the ad account first. So we do all the research. We go over here. We funnel hack. We do competitor research. We go here and do the research on the customers. We actually have a very useful document called Holy Creative Document, which is where we put all of our customer research. So customer reviews, Amazon reviews, TikTok research, the one that I just did, Reddit reviews, avatars, right, the one that I'm doing right now, organic comments. We do all these types of research. And so the goal over here, just to go back to the diagram, is that we do the research, we understand what could work, and we test it on the ad level. If it proves to give us decent conversion rates, decent CPMs, decent cost per clicks, decent everything, and it's working, then we go ahead and improve it by personalizing the advertorial, the landing page, the offer, the positioning of the product, okay? That's typically how we do it. Does it have to be a 10x ROAS to do this? No, it can also be a break even, because we know that if this is break even with like decent ads to a specific avatar, what happens if we personalize and customize the entire sales process, maybe also by adding upsells, downsells, cross-sells to that specific persona? Of course, it's going to work better. And imagine guess what? Even if we increase it just by 20%, what if we go from a 1.5 break even to like, I don't know, what's 20% of 1.5? I think it's like 0.3. So we go from like 1.5 to 1.87 or 1.9 at scale. That is, if you have a decent break even point, that alone is a 20% margin business. So this can make the difference. That is just a tangent on the other side, but you get the point. So we tested avatars, and then we move forward with the sales process. These are some avatars, just to give you some concrete examples of a good avatar versus a bad avatar or like a bad market segment. Okay, so this is the bad market segment. Not saying that this doesn't work. I'm just saying that you are competing against everybody going after people that want to get more lean. Very, very saturated, right? So saturated. If your cost per click, the only way that you can maybe go about this is that you have like killer sales process that just fully resonates with like I don't know. I've seen it happen, but you're really, really putting like a, you're stabbing yourself in the foot because it's hard. So instead of going after this, we go after maybe somebody who is still looking to get more lean, but is a 25 to 40-year-old postpartum mom. She has gained weight and fat during pregnancy and she feels stuck. You know how many postpartum moms there are? Let's do a little research, right, to validate this avatar. So we go over here in Google, Google, right? How many moms, I don't know, how many moms are there in the US in each year? 3.6, 3.7. And guess what? Postpartum can also go up to like 1 year after you got the pregnancy, 2 years after. So this is probably a 10 to 12 million, not dollar, but 10 to 12 million addressable market, right? Let's multiply the two. 12 million times $150. That's over $1.8 billion market. So huge, huge marketplace. Still huge enough to get, if you get 1%, you have an 8-figure brand. You're making, this is like $18 million from one avatar. So that is an example of a good avatar. Okay. So what would happen here? Like we're selling a supplement, a program, whatever, but these are the examples of a broad persona and something that is targeted with like one specific pain point and one specific situation. So then we go ahead, once it's proven on the ad account and it gives us good results, we go ahead and personalize maybe this, we do like a storytelling advertorial, and then we also personalize the product page. You get the point. And so maybe an idea for an ad is like having a mom with like holding her baby and talking about the difficulties that she's having. Sometimes you don't have to be very complicated with like AI voiceovers this, AI voiceovers that, or long form visa. Sometimes a raw UGC, very authentic ad can get the job done. We've just onboarded a client that has scale from 0 to like $500,000 a month with just one UGC ad, right? Basically. So that's the proof of it is in the pudding. Right. Another example, broad persona, people who want to get rid of belly fat. Very, very broad. Another targeted persona, which is ideal, a 30-year-old Josh that works 10 plus hours per day or 12 hours a day on the desk, doesn't move, no diet, has belly fat, and has low self-esteem and can't find a girlfriend. You know how many people like this there are in the US, specifically in the US, that work, get fat, whatever? A lot. But if you create an ad like this that resonates with this, 30-year-old Josh, right? It's going to have higher CTR, right? It's maybe not going to have a $50 billion addressable market, right? But it's going to have a $1 or $2 or $3 billion. And by the way, in some cases, what Facebook does is that it will give spend maybe to the persona that has the biggest scale, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the profitable ad because it's so competitive. So once again, you can stop through this and go through the sales process here. These are just examples. These are not like things that we would do 100%. These are just brainstorming ideas. So testimonial type of ad with a transformation, maybe a transformational advertorial, how I went from this to this in like 5 months. How Josh lost 30 pounds in 5 months and went from a 3 out of 10 confidence level to a 9 out of 10 confidence. Here, we're solving the problem of confidence through body, right? Could have been through emotional state. In this case, it's through the body, right? Another example of a persona, just to give you some concrete examples, people who want to get more muscle. Broad persona. Here's a more targeted one. 20 to 35-year-old Gavin that works out 3 to 4 times a week, eats a lot, trying to get muscle despite trying for 1 to 5 years, and he just can't. No matter how much I eat or lift, I still look like a string bean. So we're basically going after people that just cannot bulk up and get muscle and that are just skinny. You know how many people there are like that in the US? Probably like 10, 20, 30 million. I don't know. There's a lot of people. So once again, you can stop through this and read it yourself. I'm not going to do it in this video, but we're personalizing the sales process once we prove that this avatar is giving us some form of break-even or profitable ROAS on the front end, right? And then this is another example of just one more, just to do one more. Women who want to get toned. This is already a bit more specific, but it's still really, really broad. And the ideal persona for that maybe could be a 48-year-old Sally that cannot get rid of her flappy arms. I've gone through this example several other times already. But 48-year-old Sally cannot get rid of her flappy arms because she can't lose more weight, and she's already skinny. So basically, she's skinny. She's like 40, 50, and she has flappy arms, but she can't lose more weight because she's already skinny. You know how many women that are like semi-skinny that can't lose more weight because then it would be unhealthy, that have flappy arms? A lot of people. Maybe half the women, or like 30% of women in the United States. I don't know. You have to do the research. And then we personalize, maybe do a BSL with a doctor ad. You get the point. Stop through this and you can read through a typical or ideal sales process that we would probably test, right? And so once again, you build the sales process right after you prove this. In some cases, we just go all in and do it immediately just to give the funnel 1,000% chance from the get-go to get data faster, but it really depends on resources. We like to typically test it first on the ad account. Ideal situation is that we go from having 1 to 2 avatars and reaching our ceilings, right? Barely hitting maybe 500K, a million a month, to going over that, doing $10 million a month. These orange things, by the way, are like iterations. So we have avatars, we scale avatars with different angles, and then we scale everything with like multiple different types of iterations, and then we're gonna reach our ceiling because it's how it works. And then ideally we create this process with like 2, 3, 4, 5, as many avatars as we can. Hey, if you can do it with 4, it's better than doing it with 1. You could like triple or quadruple the revenue of your company by just doing this. Or you could 10x it because one avatar is actually way more scalable than the other. In some cases, we don't understand that some avatars, right, are just way more scalable. Maybe number one is like scalable to like 800 million addressable market, right? While avatar number 2 has a $3 billion market, but it's way more scalable, right? Once again, one quick thing to note here is that the size of your market will not justify how profitable or unprofitable your ads are. I'm not saying the smaller the market, the more profitable. I'm just saying the more you go after specific avatars and the more you have a much higher likelihood that the ad actually resonates. But if your avatar is way too specific, then your ads are just also going to be expensive because you're literally saying to Facebook, go ahead and find me the 500 people in the US. It's like these specific 500 people. Of course, it's going to be more expensive marketing, right? But if the TAM is big enough, then you should be able to scale without any problem while still building personalized ads. That is it for this video. Hopefully this made sense. Let me know if you have any questions about this. But if you want to get to $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 per day or more in revenue in every single day, profitably, of course, and you want us to do it, or you want to at least explore the opportunity of doing it with us, then you can book in a call. You're probably going to have a call with me. I like to take these calls personally because we only work with 10 to 12 brands, and one brand is a big deal for us. So you can click the link, apply, and we can discuss from there. That is it for this video, and see you in the next one. Bye.